This is Susan Milner, also known as McCartney Green. We are on chapter 23 of book number 1, A Healing in Jesus' Name. Once again, Shelley woke up Saturday morning the way she always did on tournament mornings, with Eric's wet hair dripping on her face. She smiled before she even opened her eyes. "I didn't think you'd make it this time," she said. "Well, I never want to disappoint you." "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Much better. I'm still a little sore, though. How are you feeling?" "Anxious, nervous, unfocused, scared, and upset." He frowned. "Well, now, this isn't good." She laughed. "It's also not true. Actually, I'm feeling pretty calm and centered and energetic and mean," she said loudly. He grinned. "Good. Hold that thought all the way. I guess there's no need for a little foreplay then?" She pulled his wet hair. "If you call beating me up or tickling me foreplay, then the answer is no," she assured him. New scene. Ricky had already gathered the boys, who were always happy to be in his company. He knew that would eventually wear off, but secretly hoped it never would. Together they went to pick up Bree and her father from the airport and go to breakfast. Meanwhile, Eric and Shelley dressed and ate a light breakfast, and at the end of that breakfast, Shelley proclaimed dramatically, "I feel the need to kick some butt and show the world that Eric Keno is the greatest teacher of all time." They arrived at the tournament hall, and she immediately looked up to view her cheering section. Mark and Joey were waving madly. Sitting next to the kids, Angel waved and cupped her hands around her mouth and yelled some sort of woot-woot sound. Bree and Robert both smiled and waved. Sing Lei didn't show. Shelley laughed as Angel and Mark and Joey all jumped up and down, doing a mini wave. "Come on, Shelley," Ricky said, grabbing her braid. "It's time to get warm and stretch out." Eric spoke to Shelley. She stretched. "Okay, babe, so you've said hello to the family. Now I need you to put them out of your mind. Focus. Center. Breathe." She did exactly that while she waited patiently for the tournament to get underway. Justin filled them in on her first opponent. She listened intently, and when it was finally Shelley's turn, Eric and Justin each kissed a cheek and sent her out to battle. She drew a deep breath. She thought of the men who hurt Eric. She thought of the man who hurt her. Even thought of Sing Lei. And then she took out her first opponent without ever being touched. And the crowd went wild. Shelley had become a favorite and fairly well known in the martial arts community. Much of that had to do with Eric's and Ricky's notoriety. Yet slowly, she was becoming known for her own prowess and skill on the mats. If anyone had any doubts about that, she was erasing those doubts today. The entire tournament seemed to repeat New Orleans. She stayed intent and focused. She felt no fear. She felt no intimidation. She was the one intimidating. Justin kept track of her opponents. Eric remained standing by her side the whole time. He did his best to move about naturally so that whoever wanted to hurt him could see that he was just fine. Other than a small butterfly bandage under his chin and slight bruising to his face, he appeared perfectly fit and healthy. Shelley found her second bout against an 18-year-old who had lots of... Shelley fought her second bout against an 18-year-old who had lots of energy. Shelley might be older, a lot older, but she was also stronger and quicker. Shelley blocked several incoming punches and kicks and then whipped around and sent the girl down hard with a spinning hook kick. When she didn't get up right away, Shelley went to her side and took her hand. "You okay, sweetie?" Shelley asked. The girl moaned and opened her eyes. "I'm okay, I think," she replied softly. "You want to get up?" the official asked. "I don't think so," the girl said. As Shelley was declared the winner, she helped the girl stand and hugged her. Her instructor bowed and helped her off the mat. Shelley reported back to Eric. "Don't let that get in your head, hun," he said, as if reading her mind. "That was you in Daytona. She'll be okay, and both her and her teacher will learn from this experience. Now, what you need to do is go give someone else a learning experience." Shelley nodded. She remained focused and won each round easily. Then, just before the championship bouts, the tournament directors did something that took Shelley by surprise. "We have 3 competitors here today," the director announced, "who will be competing in June at the Mart. Let's call them out and give them a big round of applause for coming such a long way in such a short time. First, Mr. Frank Trowell, black belt, with Sensei Master Mike Cho. The man ran out to the center arena and bowed. Next, Mr. Terrence Millsap, black belt, with Sensei Master Dan Savatny. Shelley glanced worriedly at Eric. Do I look okay? She smoothed her hair. The others have already made their black belts. I feel stupid. Sighing, Eric only shook his head. Last but definitely not least, Ms. Shelley Adams, red belt, with Sensei Master Eric Kino. The whistles and cheers from the crowd helped Shelley's weak ego, and she smiled and waved. Eric had to help her refocus and get ready for the championship round. When her bout was called, she started toward the mat, then turned and ran back to Eric. This is for you, you gorgeous hunk. She grabbed his face and kissed him fiercely. Eric watched his little warrior thoughtfully, nodding his head in approval. She was calm and confident and fighting a perfect battle against a very strong and another young opponent. Of course, she hadn't fought anyone even close to her age all year, and she wouldn't. Eric told her that from the very beginning. Currently, 34-year-old Shelley, almost twice the age of her opponent, was blocking almost every kick and punch and making almost every offensive move count. This was not a little three-point tournament. This was a full contact won by judges points for strikes or a KO. Her opponent had connected a few times, but Shelley had connected almost every time. She was quick and powerful and remarkable, and when the battle was over, the winner was declared. Shelley Adams. Ricky, Justin, and Jason grabbed her and threw her up in the air before Eric could get to her. But once he arrived, they set her down, and he slowly wrapped his arms around her and pulled her close, ignoring any pain that it caused. Oh, this feels so good, she purred. To finally win a championship? No, to be close to you again. Her family made their way down to her with all the hugs and kisses she could handle, and even Robert was impressed. Wow, Mom, you were so awesome, Mark and Joey exclaimed over and over. Well, it's not me, she reminded them. What you just saw was the skill of my teacher. Mom, Bree said, I am so proud of you. It's you who had to learn and put into action what Eric taught you. She hugged her mother, and Eric agreed with Bree. And Shelley mussed the boy's hair. Are y'all as hungry as I am? Starved, they answered. Well, let's go celebrate, she chirped happily. New scene. The next few weeks for Shelley were like a beautiful dream. Evenings and weekends were spent in celebration. They celebrated Shelley's win. They celebrated spring. They celebrated life. Eric's body healed quickly, and they celebrated that. There were long walks and picnics in the sun. The dogwoods were in full bloom, lining every street. The late afternoon sun shining across fresh pink azaleas and freshly cut lawns gave a delicious feeling of peace. And once again, the dandelions were smiling. People were out and about, washing cars, barbecuing, taking walks, and life seemed beautiful. Eric and Shelley enjoyed sitting out on the front lawn watching Mark and Joey play kung fu. Sometimes Eric and Joey would team up against Mark and Shelley, and they would have a giant battle. This usually drew a crowd from the neighborhood children who, of course, were invited to play. It was one of these spring days that Shelley received a phone call. She hung up. Her eyes were full of wonder. Is there a problem? Eric asked. Meg and Brian just had their baby, an 8-pounder. Eric grinned. Wow, big boy. That's wonderful. Yes, it is, Shelley agreed softly, remembering the birth of her own children. It's such an amazing feeling, she said, to be the first to see a new life. You can feel its spirit. It's so precious, life. I know, Eric whispered, thinking of Ricky's birth and also of the days just after his first wife passed. It's been so much fun to watch Brian and Meg be so excited about their baby, she sighed. Some parents don't really appreciate the blessings of having a child. Eric glanced at her. Are you speaking of someone in particular? Shelley nodded. Actually, yes. When Bree was in middle school, she was on the dance team, and there was this sweet girl who came in from the high school to help them learn some dances. Her name was Caro. I think it was short for Caroline. She was just a high school freshman, but she was so talented. And she was such a sweet girl, but real quiet, and she seemed a little jittery. And some of us parents helped to make the costumes, and she was going to perform one of the numbers with the girls at a pre-competition show, so she came over to try her costume on. I was helping her, checking the seams. Shelley stopped and shook her head as tears gathered in her eyes. The poor girl had bruises on her back, and stupid me, I asked her about them. She pulled away, almost in a panic, and said she had to get home. She dressed so fast. I realized what was happening to her, and I tried to tell her it was okay. She could talk to me, but she was having none of that. She ran out like a frightened little puppy. And so you think her parents were abusing her? Well, I later found out that her mother was an alcoholic and had been arrested at one time for child endangerment. I never knew what happened to that poor girl. I never saw her again, and neither did Bree, because she left that school and it seemed like she disappeared off the face of the planet. And of course, you feel guilty. Well, I guess. I've always wondered what happened to her. I hope she's okay. But it made me appreciate my own children more and realize that people waste so much time. What do you mean? We spend time fighting with each other instead of loving each other. We spend time wishing and never doing. And then sometimes we work so hard we forget simple stuff like taking a walk together or eating an ice cream cone. Time with our children is so precious. Well, sometimes the business of life gets in the way, Eric agreed. But don't judge others for working hard at what they want to accomplish. Look at yourself. There are times we can take that walk, and times we have to spar for 2 hours. Shelley smiled. You're right. But still, we do take time to stop and smell the roses. He smiled at her and pulled her close. I'm proud of you, Shelley. You're getting much stronger. She took a fighting stance. Let me show you just how strong I am. I bet I can take you to the floor. Well, now, this is a great situation for me, Eric laughed. If I win, I win. And if I lose, I win. New scene. They focused on Shelley's black belt training for the last few weeks before spring break. Once the boys left to visit their father for spring break, Eric used the time to push Shelley even harder. In stretching, he insisted she go 1 more inch. In running, it was 1 more mile. In the weight room, it was 2 more reps. And in the classroom, everything was, and again, once more. You think you got it? Okay, 10 more times. One afternoon, after a particular intense workout, they stretched out on the floor of the dojang, and Eric closed his eyes. Shelley turned over on her stomach and watched him. Curiously, she raised his t-shirt and rubbed her hand over his chest. There were still a few markings from the beating he'd taken. Does it bother you to be here at all? She asked. Beware, he replied, his eyes still closed. Here where they hurt you. There's still some blood on the carpet over there. She pointed to a nearby spatter. It kind of gives me the creeps. Eric sat up and looked around a moment. I remember thinking that day that this room was the last thing I'd ever see, at least with my human eyes. He shrugged. But in answer to your question, no, it doesn't bother me. It's just a room. I'm glad I'm alive to be here in this room. I'm grateful, actually. It was time for a lesson. He stood and went to the punching bag. I'm grateful that I have the strength to do this. He jumped up and swung from the steel plate where he'd been hung weeks earlier. Stop it. That's not funny. Eric laughed and came back to her. Oh, Shelley. My sweet, when are you going to learn? Things are just things. Bodies are just bodies. What happened to my body doesn't matter. It's the spirit, the life force, the mind that matters. Shelley sighed, her brow furrowed. He pulled her to him and walked her over to the mirror. It was time to put the rape into perspective. I'm going to teach you about bodies. Turning her to face the mirror, he straightened her head and smoothed back her hair. This is a body, he said academically. This particular one just happens to be a female body. It also just happens to be very beautiful to look upon. She turned away, grinning and blushing, but he turned her back around, and he struck a pose in the mirror. This is a male body. He took his shirt off. It is also a beautiful body. Let's look at the differences, he said. He had to coax her into turning around to face the mirror again. Standing behind her, he gently placed his hands on her shoulders. Notice that the female body, even when in excellent shape, as this one is much softer than the male. Softly touching her neck, he ran his fingertips slowly over her shoulder and down to her wrist. Notice the way the female body responds instantly to touch. Females are definitely sensitive creatures, he said, as he kissed her neck, making her shiver. She tried to turn to face him, but he made her look into the mirror. He put his hands on her waist. A female's hips are wider and softer because of the reproductive organs protected within. When I touch you here, he stroked her cheek. Or here, he slid his arm around her waist. Or more intimate places. It wouldn't be pleasurable at all if not for the messages being sent to your brain. So what that means is, your mind is what matters. Shelley swayed back against him, and Eric smiled. We love each other, and our bodies respond to each other, but still, they're just bodies. He walked across the room. I love you just as much from over here. My heart and my brain tell me that. He came back to her and took her in his arms, and he kissed her deeply. He had only meant to make a point about how a kiss feels, but they sunk to the floor, Eric pressing against her, and Shelley sighed. I hope Brian doesn't come back here for anything, she murmured as she snuggled against him. But her words reminded him to go on with the lesson. It doesn't matter, Eric corrected her, continuing the lesson. You've missed the point. Bodies are just bodies. He could come in and see us stark naked, but it wouldn't matter. Shelley frowned. But aren't bodies important? I mean, look how hard we've trained our bodies. Yes, they're important. They're a temple for our spirits. They work to take care of us. They procreate. They serve others. But our minds are part of the spiritual, and our bodies are mortal until we are resurrected. Our mortal bodies will die or be changed, he added with a smile, but that's another whole subject. Our spirits live on regardless. He touched her arm. This is just a body. When a man and woman are intimate, it's your brain that tells you that the muscular contractions of your body are a pleasurable sexual experience. The body was merely a tool of the brain. If anyone else accidentally or on purpose sees your body, touches your body, even harms your body, it doesn't matter. As long as you don't let them inside your mind, then you're okay. Those men who attacked me didn't change my mind about anything. They only got away with causing me some pain. And yeah, it hurt. Physically. But they couldn't touch my mind because with Jesus, I can endure anything. Shelley pondered the information for a time. So, what you said a long time ago about the man who raped me, that I'm only a victim if I let myself be a victim, you meant if I let him into my mind? You're beginning to see, Eric said with a smile. That rape hurt you mostly because you weren't able to keep him out of your mind. That wasn't because your mind was weak, sweetheart. It was because you hadn't been given a life base of love and support, and mostly God, and your defenses were weak. But Shelley, you have come a very long way. Your mind is so much stronger now. You know, there was a time when you couldn't bring yourself to even speak that word. What word? Rape. New scene. The day before Shelley's black belt test, Eric and Ricky pushed her to the limit. Shelley lay on the rough blue mat, her clothes drenched in perspiration, her heart pounding. Eric, I swear, if you or Ricky knock me down again, I'll scream. So scream, little warrior. No one will care, he said, as he gently kicked her thigh. Ricky kicked the other one. Get up and fight, woman, he coaxed. She rolled over onto her stomach and pulled her tired body up to a fighting stance. Don't underestimate your enemy, Eric spoke sharply. Think like him. Be one with him. She used a crescent kick to block his punch and an outside block to defend against Ricky's kick, and holding her own for a few seconds. But she moved too slowly and took Eric's foot in the ribs. That was it. She curled into a ball as she hit the mat and lay still. Concerned, Eric knelt beside the fallen woman. Are you okay? No, she panted. Let me see where you're hurt. Shelley rolled onto her back and paused, waiting for Eric and Ricky to get close enough. Timing it perfectly, her legs kicked out and caught both men off guard and in the face, and they rolled over and came back up. Shelley's laughter made her unable to get up and run, and they pounced on her easily. The shower? Ricky asked. The shower, Eric agreed as they carried her kicking and screaming to the dressing room. The cold water took her breath away several times until finally they had mercy and pulled her out. That's what you get for cheating, Ricky laughed. Oh, and you called 2 against 1 fair? Besides, you told me to think like the enemy. So I did, she smirked. Eric smiled and nodded. Well done, Shelley girl. Ricky spoke briefly to his father in Mandarin before he turned to Shelley. Well, beautiful lady, I have an appointment, so kiss me goodbye and I'll be out of here. Shelley blew him a kiss. And Eric glanced at his watch. You better get changed, babe, as it's almost time to pick the kids up from school. They picked up the children and arrived home. And Shelley was surprised to find Ricky there, along with an elderly Chinese man. Grandmaster Wong, may I present a most promising student, Shelley Adams, Eric said. Shelley bowed first and then offered her hand. It's an honor to meet you, sir, she said softly. He patted her hand and winked at Eric. Promising indeed. I had no idea you'd be here today, Shelley said, giving a pointed look at Eric. The old man smiled at her. Oh, I like to catch my students off guard and see how they handle themselves. Grandmaster Wong sat with them and drank with them and kept an eye on Shelley, and by the end of the evening he seemed quite impressed with her. Grandmaster Wong excused himself, and Eric walked him out. Interesting young lady, he began, and very pretty. She doesn't speak much, though. Is she shy? Eric chuckled at his teacher's question. No, sir, she's not shy. She's only on good behavior. Oh, then she's obedient. Good. Eric kept his opinion on that to himself. And the 2 of you are in love? Yes, Eric admitted. The question didn't take him by surprise. He knew his teacher would know. Then you intend to marry her. I don't think she'll have me as a husband. The master patted Eric on the shoulder and slowly shook his head. And I do not think that you think. Eric shrugged. Well, she's let me know several times over this past year how important her freedom is to her. She actually described marriage as being consumed. She said, if you love someone enough, then you would let them be free. Well, I love her enough. Master Wong shook his head again. Your mind is not clear, son. You must meditate and pray and seek guidance on this. Call your father. Speak to him, both earthly and heavenly. Eric started to argue with him, but stopped when he saw the stern look on his master's face, and he bowed. Thank you, Grandmaster Wong. I'll do as you ask. New scene. Saturday, test day, arrived, and Shelley's nerves were on edge. Shelley worked on the breakfast dishes, and then when the second glass fell to the floor, this one shattering, Eric decided she needed some help. Come here, babe, he beckoned, then called over his shoulder. Come on, boys, your mom needs a trampoline session. No, Eric, I don't feel like it. Too bad, he laughed as he lifted her over his shoulder and carried her out the back. He tossed her onto the trampoline as if she were nothing more than a sack of flour. She moaned and turned onto her back. Mark and Joey jumped on and hopped around her, making her bounce haphazardly over the trampoline. A slight smile crossed her lips. Eric jumped on and she realized she'd better stand or die. Hey, Mom, Mark called as they all tried to jump in sync. What's this one? Seriously, war child? Shelley rolled her eyes. Point Break. Life is like a box of chocolates. Forrest Gump, she answered. You're a huckleberry, Joey mimicked in a southern drawl. Tombstone, Shelley said. Don't touch me. Or what? I'll touch you back, Mark said, and Shelley began to smile. Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. Yay, Mom's smiling, Joey cheered. Yay, Joey's about to get launched, Shelley mocked, laughing as she bounced hard right next to him, sending him high into the air, and he came down in Eric's arms. And Shelley sat down. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry. I didn't think I'd be this nervous. What time is it? Eric glanced at his watch. It's time to go. She drew in a deep breath. Eric pulled her close. Babe, forget you're going for your black belt. Pretend you're simply in class. You know everything you need to know. I have been testing you continuously all week. Your skills are excellent. Clear your mind and take care of the task at hand. They arrived at the studio, and Eric watched Shelley as she headed for the dressing room. She wore blue jean shorts and a sleeveless T-shirt, yet even in those less than feminine clothes, she was able to stir him. He shook his head. Never had a woman affected him like she did, not even his late wife. Grandmaster Wong sat on the floor at the far end of the room behind the small ceremonial table that Eric had provided. Eric made himself comfortable in the corner on the floor. He watched as his star student got control of her emotions and swung into action, completing whatever task Grandmaster Wong bid. Her forms were perfect. The sparring moves were close. Grandmaster Wong had already seen video of Shelley sparring against Brian and Ricky and himself. Her kicks and flexibility were excellent, power precise. When it came time to break boards, Eric couldn't help but hold his breath. She easily broke the single boards and doubles. She struggled a bit with the triples, but when she tried fours, she failed. She turned her back for a moment, and Eric knew exactly what she was thinking, knew the exact words she spoke to herself. I will wipe the idea of failure from my mind. She drew in a deep breath and turned back, delivering a powerful kiap with much emotion. She brought her hand down. Success. She turned to Eric, looking for his approval, for his smile, but he wouldn't give it to her. Not yet. It was a very thorough test that included sparring against her teacher, and finally Grandmaster Wong motioned for her to sit in front of his table and asked Eric to leave the room. He continued writing for a few minutes before he put his pen down and spoke to Shelley. Miss Adams, you've performed very well. I can see you have worked hard. Eric is an excellent instructor. He paused. But I'm afraid I can't award you your black belt at this time. At first, Shelley wasn't sure what he was saying. The words she heard couldn't be right. She must have misunderstood. Yet the older man was looking at her with compassion. There will be another time. She failed. She let everyone down. How could she face Eric? She opened her mouth to ask what she'd done that had caused her failing marks, but she stopped herself, because this man was a grand master. She had no right to question his decision. Looking up at him through misty eyes, she spoke with trembling lips. I appreciate you traveling so far, and thank you for your time. I apologize. Your effort has been in vain. He smiled at her and took her hand in his gnarled fingers. Don't be dismayed. We'll meet again soon. Shelley bowed to him and turned to find Eric, but he was nowhere in sight. Glad to not have to face him immediately, she went to the dressing room and changed. Brushing her hair out, she stared at her reflection. I knew there was a possibility. This is why I was so nervous. I messed up. Now I have to live with it. She drew a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. Be strong. Don't fall apart. Be a warrior. She really thought she'd passed, though. She thought she'd done well, and she'd fought so well at the last tournament. Eric had taught her that when something negative or unpleasant happened, rather than lying to oneself and putting on a false front, it's better to just acknowledge the pain, experience it fully, and then let it go. She sat simply and limply on the green leather couch and let the grief of failure consume her. When she finally emerged from the dressing room, Eric was running his hand through his hair as he spoke to his old teacher. He glanced over at her, the disappointment in his eyes devastating her. Politely, she leaned against the door and waited until they finished their conversation. Ricky arrived. He glanced at Shelley, looked away, and escorted Grandmaster Wong out the door. She supposed he was taking him to his hotel or to the airport. Eric came to her. You all right, sweetie? He asked softly. She wanted to speak, but found she couldn't without crying, so she merely nodded. Come on, we'll go home and everything will be okay. I promise. He felt his heart might break for her, and he started to speak words to comfort her, but he stopped himself, because empty words wouldn't help her. She walked silently beside her teacher, whom she'd let down. In the car, she turned her head away to look out the window as a tear found its way down her cheek. Without her black belt, she couldn't compete in the mart. Turning to Eric, she forced the question out, biting her lip between words to stop the tears. Is there still time before the mart to try again? Eric looked at her with such love. His iron fingers touched her cheek and brushed away an escaped tear. There it is. That's what I was looking for. What? That question shows that you don't accept defeat. You haven't given up. You haven't thrown yourself into a river of despair. You've definitely come a very long way from the woman I met 11 months ago. Yes, there's plenty of time, he finally answered. The boys are going to be so disappointed in me. No, they won't. They love you. Arriving at the house, he helped her out of the car, and she found she needed his arms around her. Leaning against him, she murmured, "I am sorry, Eric." Pulling her tight against him, he comforted her. "Everything's going to be fine. You'll see. Come on now, chin up." They walked slowly to the door, and he unlocked it and pushed Shelley through, and what she saw took her breath away. Candles everywhere, and incense, and a house full of people. Ricky and the boys wore traditional Chinese dress and were sitting cross-legged against one wall. Justin, Jason, and Mr. Bearden sat reverently on the couch. It was the other person in the room that left Shelley wondering. And Grandmaster Wong sat on the floor in the center of the room, the table in front of him. He was smiling at her. Eric's arm found her waist and pulled her close. "You didn't really think that one of my students would actually fail, did you?" A beautiful smile crossed her lips, and she jumped onto his back and kissed his cheek as she realized what was happening. He carried her piggyback upstairs and told her to dress quickly. Her white silk jacket and pants lay on her bed beside his. She quickly grabbed up the silk uniform and hurried into the bathroom to dress, leaving Eric to dress in the bedroom. And when she came out, she was frowning. "What?" Eric asked. "You let me go through all that. How could you?" He smiled. I almost couldn't. You were so pitiful. I started to tell you 100 times, but how you handled defeat was part of the test, and you passed that part with flying colors." He took her face in his bronzed hands. "I'll make it up to you somehow." "Yes, you will," she warned. He smiled and put his finger to his lips, becoming reverent. Before they returned to the awaiting ceremony, they walked quietly downstairs. Shelley sat down across from Grandmaster Wong, and Eric sat by her side. He watched her as she went through a ceremony Grandmaster Wong had designed especially for her. Her aura seemed to glow, and Eric suddenly felt a pull so strong it surprised him. It was as if he'd been given a powerful love potion. Energy vibrated through his body and coiled in his gut. Every move she made was like the stroke of a violin, moving through him. Shelley merely shook back her hair, and the violin grew louder. Glossy brown curls fell down her straight back. She was a picture of innocence with her eyes opened wide and golden lashes fluttering slowly as she blinked. Cheeks rosy from excitement accentuated her turned-up mouth of the same color. Eric couldn't keep his eyes off her. Master Wong handed a delicate cup to Shelley. "I ask blessings on you, child, in Jesus' name, with each sip from this cup." He motioned for her to drink. Eric was fascinated as she pressed the warm cup to her lips. "May you have the strength to overcome strife," the master said. Shelley sipped again. "May you have swiftness of hands and feet." As Shelley continued to sip slowly, Grandmaster Wong called out more blessings: power and strength, balance and mobility, rhythm and timing, alert and clear mind. It was the last one, though, that everyone felt so strongly. "The power of God will come to your aid when called upon in surrender and sincerity." The words rang like distant thunder, and Eric's head bowed as he sensed the Holy Spirit move through him. Grandmaster Wong retrieved the cup from Shelley and handed it to Eric to consume the last swallow. "All that is hers is also yours," he said. "You've been a diligent teacher, and it's been a difficult road." He paused and drew a deep breath. "And the difficulties are not over. I'm proud of you as my student and my friend. However, remember, you're not ever finished teaching. Once a student is yours, she's yours forever." And that sounded pretty good to Eric. He set the cup on the table. The teacher smiled and placed on the table a box tied with many colorful ribbons. "I didn't lie to you, Miss Shelley. I said I couldn't award you your belt at that time. I could not award it to you there because your belt was here." He smiled. "And I would derive great pleasure in awarding this to you now, but I still cannot." Eric was confused again, and Master Wong handed the box to Eric, who in turn placed it in Shelley's hand. Eric's voice was sweeter than Shelley had ever remembered. "I am honored to be the one to award you this token of your skills. You've earned it." Shelley opened the box and held up the belt. "Tell me something you've learned," Eric urged. She thought for only a split second. I've learned that this belt is only a piece of material, a symbol, and the real black belt is the warrior inside my mind." She looked at Eric a moment and then softly added, "I've also learned that dreams can come true." And she winked at Mark and Joey, "and that there's no place like home." Both the boys and Ricky laughed. "That's the Wizard of Oz," they chanted in unison. And Eric pulled Shelley to her feet and wrapped the black belt around her waist and kissed her gently as Mark and Joey giggled. The party adjourned to the kitchen, where Ricky and the boys had laid a feast. An envelope leaned against the centerpiece of sunflowers. As everyone filled their plates and cups, Mr. Bearden brought them back to attention once more. He held up the envelope. "I have here a small gift for the teacher and his student." He handed it to Shelley. Leaning against the wall, Shelley glanced up at Eric. His eyes shone. His body seemed tense. He was ultimate masculinity and power, and his gaze made Shelley blush. She didn't know if he was thinking what she was thinking, but she hoped so. "I need you, I want you, and I don't know how much longer I can wait." It was an energy, a strong vibration moving through her body, as if Eric was plucking her strings. Her hands actually trembling, she tried to focus on the envelope as she opened it. There were several photographs and a letter, and she quietly read the contents. "Well," everybody said. "What is it?" Shelley's eyebrows rose. "We've been provided a remote cabin in Tyler Springs in the North Georgia mountains for training purposes for the last 4 weeks before the Mart." "May I see?" Eric said, reaching for the photos. "Let's go," Joey said excitedly. Shelley frowned. "Well, it sounds wonderful, but we can't go. You guys have 4 more weeks of school." "I'll stay with them," Ricky volunteered immediately, "and Bree will be home in 2 weeks." Shelley shook her head. "In 4 weeks, my favorite boys in the whole world will leave to spend the summer with their dad. And if I go up there, I won't get to see them for 3 months. No way." "Aw, come on, Mom. We won't mind," Mark said. "Ricky'll take good care of us." "Well, thanks a lot, you guys. You may not miss me, but I'll miss you." "I know," Ricky offered. "They can miss 1 day of school each week. So on Thursday afternoon, we'll drive up and be with you guys until Sunday afternoon. That'll give you 3 out of 7 days with the boys. That's not bad. It's almost half." The argument continued for several minutes until someone asked Eric's opinion, and he looked at Mr. Bearden. "This is your cabin?" "Actually, it belongs to my brother-in-law. I visited him there before and was taken with the beauty and serenity of the place. The cabin itself is rustic." The cabin itself is rustic. It's a hunting cabin, not luxurious at all. But I think it's the simplicity of the place surrounded by the beauty of the countryside that really touched me. It's very remote. I thought it would make an excellent training ground." Eric nodded and turned to Shelley. "I'm sure it's beautiful. It would be a wonderful place to clear your mind and get ready for the Mart, and I think the boys would have a good learning experience too. Besides that, let me remind you that the Mart will only happen once for you, and you've stated many times over the past year that it's your most sincere desire." He turned his attention to his teacher. "What do you think, Grandmaster Wong?" Everyone quieted while they awaited his words. "I think you should go. You and your student must become grounded and one with the world around you." All eyes reverted back to Shelley. Okay, I guess I'm outnumbered, but I think you guys love Ricky more than me," she whined. Ricky hugged her. "Aw, don't worry, Mom. I won't let them forget you." "Very funny, Ricky." She looked back at Eric. "Well then, I guess we're going." Eric gazed into Shelley's eyes. He didn't know what was happening to him, but all he could think about was getting Shelley alone and taking her in his arms. "Hey guys," Ricky started. "How about a night out and we'll make plans? Bowling, dinner, and maybe a movie." "Not bowling, trampolines," Joey cried. "No, laser tag," Mark said. "You've got it." "That sounds fun to me," Grandmaster Wong suddenly said. Everyone stopped to stare at him, and he shrugged innocently. "Oh, am I not invited?" "Of course you are," Justin said quickly. "We'll all go. This should be a riot." "Are you coming, Mom?" Joey asked. "I don't know. It's been a hard day." Mark hugged her. "I know you're tired, and you're so old and all. Maybe you should go to bed." Shelley laughed. "Yeah, I think you're right, since I'm so old." Eric smiled. "Okay," Ricky said. "It's 6 now. We probably won't be back before 10. He spoke a little too loudly. "You're a good son, Rick," Eric laughed. The little party soon ended, and Eric saw the crowd out while Shelley worked on cleaning up. Standing at the sink, she heard Eric come in and turn on the security alarm. She turned to see him standing in the kitchen. They moved toward each other, coming together in the center of this kitchen. "I need you," he said breathlessly. He seemed desperate, totally out of control, and Shelley realized that she liked the powerful feeling of being able to take the master off his tether, so to speak. You can have me, she whispered. His lips found hers, and she moaned softly. Eric pulled away, his heart beating like a drum. He searched for a way to break the spell, because he wanted her. He could take her right now, right here and now, but that wasn't who he was or how he wanted to pursue the relationship. But Lord, he was no saint. Still, he'd come this far. He had to find his strength. Drawing a deep breath, he blew it out slowly and licked his lips. He was distracted by the taste. You taste salty. She shrugged. I was so upset after the test I didn't shower. He nodded. Come sit with me, he said, leading her to the sofa. They sat silently while Eric worked on getting himself under control, and while he did, Shelley realized the moment had passed and came to terms with the fact that Eric had claimed back his power. It was Shelley who broke the silence and changed the subject that had been on her mind. So, Eric, why couldn't you test me yourself? Well, I could have, but you wouldn't have worked nearly as hard for me because of our relationship. Well, that was a mean stunt you pulled, she complained. It was, wasn't it? Do you still love me, or is it a deal breaker? I love you, but that doesn't mean I won't think of some kind of revenge, she teased. He chuckled. We'll just have to see about that. I do love you, Eric, she said softly. And I love you. Do you really? Then why won't you make love to me? He sighed. Because I love you and I love the Lord. Please believe me, I want to, but it's not the right time yet. So when will it be the right time? I promise you'll know it when it's right. Matthew chapter 26, verse 41. Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And that is the end of chapter 23.